purpose to protect members of the public from being hit by a motor vehicle. That's an obvious sort of solution. And there are other spots in Raglan that have the same implementation to protect pedestrians. We spent money in Raglan to beautify the town centre, and I haven't got a problem with that whatsoever. I think it's a great initiative. But as a tourist spot, we should also be protecting the people that actually come and visit here and live here. There's no protection afforded to pedestrians or tourists or anybody in that area outside Super Value. It just takes 1 second of distraction for a driver, and that car goes forward. And what's the worst case scenario? Mum with bub and tots walking along there gets smashed against the wall. And if you think this injury is bad, then it's going to be nothing compared to what could happen there. Okay. All I'm saying then, folks, is that we really need some physical control in place there, and it shouldn't be done, sometime in the future. It should be done as a matter of priority and a matter of urgency, and it's something that could be easily done. Because it's not an accident that could happen. It's a matter of when. Okay. This is something which, for me, is particularly serious, and I think there could be a huge outcry if there were to be any kind of accident there. Raglan community would be outraged. We'd be horrified that this could actually happen. But it's been sitting there for ages. In the meantime, we've done plenty of other things to improve health and safety in the town, to beautify the town, but that still remains. It's something that's close to my heart, and I really do think that an injury to pedestrians there through no fault of their own, like what happened to me in my cycling event or my cycle, should never be allowed. I hope that's fairly clear in terms of what I'm saying. I don't have a massive injury to my eye. You can see that it's okay. I have to have this though, because I've got double vision from the concussion that I had. The accident happened just outside the public toilets coming in from next to St. John's. And I still don't actually know what happened. It was really bad. And as I said earlier, I could have been killed. Let's prevent the same sort of thing from happening outside a really busy pedestrian area. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Nick, for coming to the meeting. And first of all, sorry that you had your accident in the first place, and hope that your recovery is complete and goes well.
Thank you.
And really appreciate you just bringing these concerns to the community board so that we can all hear about them. And I personally agree that it would be great to have some stops at those car parks like elsewhere around town. So did you put a response service request to the council about this one in particular?
Yes, I have. Last year, in fact. And I was told.
Get a response back?
Yeah, the response was, well, when we've got money and when we've got time.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, after my accident as well, after my accident as well. And it was all a bit vague, to put it bluntly.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us know how that went, because that's important for us to know as well. So I had a little update from the roading engineer about the stops, and what I heard back was that yes, it's a good idea, and it will be added to the next LTP costs as it's not budgeted in this period. So
sorry, what is an LTP?
No, it's the council's long-term planning.
Okay.
Yeah, but I suppose I don't know whether that means the long-term plan or possibly an annual, probably the long-term plan, which is not for another year or two. So I don't know whether it's something as a board, maybe when we come to our works and issues, we can decide if we want to add that to works and issues and actually find out how much it would cost to do that and whether we kind of push a bit more for that. So let's do that. I think unless you've got any questions specifically of Nick, board members.
No, to you, Chair. I agree that we should escalate this, and if it means that we have to horse trade on some work in Raglan, then I think that's what we need to do. Mm-hmm. This compared to some of the other roading work that we might, if we potentially in this current LTP, we should reprioritize to free up the funds.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tony. So what we'll do is we'll add it to our works and issues report so that is action from there. So thank you, Nick.
Yeah,
hopefully
yeah.
that you can get in touch anytime to find out how we're going, or just read our reports. Hopefully it'll be clear there what's happening.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you too. Is there anyone else who would like to speak from the community? Luke, did you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Gabrielle. Kia ora, everybody. So I know a lot of you on a personal level, but for those of you who are not, my name's Luke Hughes, and I'm a long-time resident of Raglan. My family have owned a business here for 30 years, and it's because of our business association in Raglan and relationships that we have with people in this community that I'm joining into this meeting today. And I'm voicing a concern on behalf of not just business owners, but community in general around some security precautions and lack of management of those precautions in this community by the council. And so to rewind the clock, it's possibly 4 years ago, give or take, please excuse me if I've got that date wrong. We had a number of CCTV cameras installed in the community CBD, so to speak. Harbourview Hotel, Orca Restaurant. Our premises here on the corner of Wainui and Bankart was also a location where 3 cameras were installed. We had those installed on the basis that we would actually pay for the running of those cameras. So I actually personally pay for the powering of those cameras, although the cameras are owned by or kind of serviced, should I say, by the council, but they have a direct feed to the local the police office, and the police were able to access those cameras and the footage that they captured whenever they want, whenever they needed. The tail end of summer, unfortunately, there was a homicide investigation in Raglan, and I had a number of police officers come to me to access that footage to help with this investigation, by which they found out that the cameras were no longer recording and they were not actually functioning at all. We went through the process with those respective police officers to look at getting those cameras operational again, obviously for the community's benefit. And they've been neglected for a number of months, if not years, to be upkept. And I've continued to pay for the operation of those cameras. However, they have not been capturing any footage whatsoever. And upon a bit of research on behalf of the police side, they communicated with council, to which the council had been given a figure to have these cameras managed and serviced. The figure was about $900, and it was not done. That's the cameras on my building. They're still there, they're powered, they're not capturing anything. And in the wake of a homicide investigation, they were useless. I was unaware. I didn't know that. I thought they were working, doing their job. As a business owner who's been ram raided in the past, I'm not sure if Satnam is in the meeting, but he can understand the inconvenience, have a business interruption like that. Not to mention fellow businesses in this CBD. With what's going on around the country in the last kind of 3 to 4 weeks of ram raids in Auckland and stuff like that, I feel as though this should be looked at, especially considering that the cameras on the Harbourview Hotel are also non-operational, and the camera that was down in Orca had been relocated for another reason that I personally find is a conflict of interest. But when you've got one operational camera and it gets moved for a non-logical reason, I question the decision-making process there. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I'd like the community board to look at this situation and the importance of it. I did email some of you individually midway through February. I got no response from anybody. I understand you're busy, respect that, but some correspondence would have been appreciated. I did hear from the Chamber of Commerce, to which they said they were going to look into it and they were going to start that communication, but it's been a number of months and again, I've heard nothing. So yeah, that's what I'd like to put forth to you guys to discuss that, and the importance of it, not just as business owners, as ratepayers, but as community members as well. And the security that, you know, I think is pretty fair for us to have an ever-growing town with a very popular tourist, domestic, now international destination for people. And I think it's a little bit of a no-brainer that we should try and look at maintaining those cameras for the community's benefit. So thank you.
Well, yeah, thanks so much, Luke, for being here and speaking. And first of all, massive apologies that I didn't even get back to you. That's really not great. And there would have been no reason other than that I was just not organised enough. So I'm sorry about that. Appreciate you coming and, you know, persisting. And I feel that this is really important. I feel that this conversation has kind of been going around in circles, to be honest, in the board and in the community for probably a couple of years, and that little things get done, but it's never really sorted out. From my experience, something like this, it needs someone to lead it and to run with it until it's sorted. And there's just not one or two people that are doing it. And I think that's the issue. I don't think it's too complicated. We worked out that there's funding available through the Cameras Trust, didn't we, Alison? So we know that there's funding if we need more funding. So it would be great. I don't understand actually myself how it's even like managed. So you've given us a bit of information, Luke, about that. And Alison, maybe you'd like to speak to that. But from my point of view, it needs a couple of business people and probably someone from the board to go like, we're going to get this sorted, so that it's not an issue anymore and we're not going around in circles.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, so council doesn't operate the cameras and hasn't operated the cameras in the past. We used to have a trust that also had the police associated with it, and when they withdrew, a new trust called the Crime Prevention Trust, Camera Trust, was set up. We are becoming more aware, I guess, of issues, and so this is the first I've heard of this particular issue, but we are becoming more aware of those issues, and we are looking at how do we gain some control over what's happening out there and what should be happening. So we are looking at that, but I'll take that back to the trust itself and find out where they're at and what their program of works are. Equally, we might be looking at this through our next long-term plan to bring it in-house to council. So, yeah, apologies for that and no awareness whatsoever, Luke. So good to hear this, something that we can actually have a serious conversation with the trust about.
Thanks, Alison. So the Camera Trust, that's made up of, is that made up of some councillors or some council staff?
So I do believe that there are some councillors appointed to it, but no council staff don't sit on that trust. But we are probably the ones that are now starting to hear the complaints from the various community boards, etc. So we're looking into how we can actually resolve this.
So do you see this as council business to actually have input or management of security cameras in a community?
It's pretty, I mean, it's pretty hard. We used to have up in Franklin, for example, they used to pay a targeted rate towards a business, sort of a business targeted rate. So the business operations would pay, and that funded their cameras up there. And I think there's been some confusion that perhaps that's the way it happened in Waikato, the old part of Waikato as well. Obviously, security is a massive concern in this day and age, and a number of things happening around the country at the moment. So it is something that we hear, particularly from our urban areas, that cameras are important to them. It's just around the monitoring. We don't have the staff capabilities or skills to be dealing with this. We have issues with mounting cameras, so it's good to hear that these are on businesses. That's the preference, because once you start using infrastructure as power poles, etc., it becomes very difficult. So look, it's something that needs addressing. Exactly who's going to do it, I'm unclear, but there's a clear desire, and particularly where you've got cameras in place that have been working previously. There should be no reason that they're not now.
Yeah, thanks, Alison. So it sounds like council will support. It may not be like a job that you will do with your staff, but you'll certainly are supportive. Are there any questions, clarifying questions to Luke from board members? Otherwise, I will make a suggestion.
Yeah, Luke, just the Orca camera. Why did that get moved, and where did it get moved to?
So my knowledge with that one, Chris, was actually there the day the council workers removed the camera. My understanding is that it was put on the airfield to monitor the goings on over there with the various different, I guess, issues that were experienced through the tail end of summer. However, my understanding, or it was maybe they made a mistake by telling me this, but there was never any intention for the camera to be wired and connected. It was literally just a facade to deter people. And unfortunately, at the time when it was moved, Chris, that was the only active camera that we had in the community CBD. It was on a sensor, so it was motion activated between the hours of 8 and 8, I believe, or something like that, which for me doesn't make sense. Any activity you want to be capturing has been always done in the nighttime, early hours of the morning. But that's not the issue. So the one working camera was changed location for a reason doesn't make sense to me. But to answer your question, yeah, we had one, now we got none.
And who owns the camera? So you pay for the ones on your building, but whose property are they belonging to?
So my understanding is there was a crowdfunding done with the Chamber of Commerce, potentially the community board as well. My partner Karamia at the time, when she was working with the Chamber of Commerce, was part of that implementation of the cameras. So the cameras were funded, I guess, if you would, through that means. But then, as I've explained, I pay for the powering of the camera. I don't own any of the technology, so to speak, but I make sure that they're not obstructed. I look after them in a sense of making sure they're clean. And the live feed fed directly to a monitor, to which I personally observed at the police station. And Constable McMillan, or Dean, who we all knew him of, was quite involved in that. He was my point of contact with having those cameras installed on our premises, and made sure that I was aware of everything, and he was really thorough, and he did a really good job in that respect. But obviously he's had to change his location for other reasons, and since then no one has picked up the responsibility, or not even close to having any form of communication. The local police officers were actually completely unaware of these cameras' existence and the fact that they were even theirs, so to speak. They thought the cameras on my premises were mine, and that's why they were coming to me to access the footage. So,
excuse me, Luke. Thank you very much for that added information. Really helpful just to understand more about it. And thanks, Chris, for questions. My suggestion is that there needs to be, it's not really one person or group's responsibility. I think actually all the people we've mentioned here actually have responsibility to be part of this. So I suggest that possibly Chris, you and Satnam from the community board, the police, the Camera Trust, you, Luke, and the Chamber of Commerce actually need to form a little working group and get this sorted.
Yeah, totally.
So, do you agree with that, Chris?
That's fine.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
now?
we also need to find out why the council are helping themselves to what are community-based cameras for their own security of their thing. So that doesn't sound right, what happened with the airfield camera from Orca, so we'll have to look into that.
Yeah, so Chris or Satnam from the board, like I'm just thinking, are you happy to lead a meeting, the first meeting? I think it's important that maybe that's something we can do. Are you happy to organise that, Chris?
Yeah, definitely would like to go first, talk to police.
I think before, sorry to interrupt you, Chris. I think before organising the meeting, I think we should go to the police station first and see where those cameras are located and who actually monitors them, and and then go speak to the people that actually have the cameras on their premises.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's that, but I think you need to have an overall conversation, go broaden out a little bit more, not just specific to the cameras we've got, but look at what do we need in the CBD for security and like how's that going to work, and then decide what you need and then investigate what you've got and work out the funding. It's got to be you've got to be thorough. Okay, we don't want to go around in circles with this again. It's been hanging around for a bit, and let's not do that. So
probably help speed that process up for you, Gabrielle, Chris, Vietnam. I've already obviously done a lot of research, and no disrespect to you guys, but I was coming here today with a plan B. If you guys weren't going to help give this some momentum, I had contingencies in place. So I'm already kind of up to speed with a lot of that stuff. So I think maybe, as you suggest, Gabrielle, with Chris and Satnam, if we did have a meeting, whether we take that meeting to the police, I can bring a lot of information to that corridor to bring us up to speed in hopes that we can get this issue resolved quicker rather than later. Past experience is that we're coming into the time of the year when unsavory people do try to help themselves. So hopefully that's not going to happen. But any help that I can bring, I'm here to do that.
Thank you, Luke, for making that really clear. Do you want to lead this then, Luke? Are you happy to do that? And basically, Chris and Satnam will come in.
No, I'd like to be present in it because I'm motivated to find a resolve. But without disrespect, I don't feel as though an individual such as myself should be taking the lead. I don't see that this is my sole responsibility. I'm an active community member with a number of things, but I think considering I've already made a significant attempt to, have these cameras already and have them monitored and serviced and stuff, I've already done a considerable amount of.
So who do you think should lead? Luke, who do you reckon should lead it? In terms of leading, what I mean is organising a meeting, making sure you follow through, you've got a clear plan, you don't just like.
Well, is that not the reason we nominate a community board, Gabrielle, and they have those communication lines with the likes of the district councils and our respective ward councillor and things like that? Like, I'm not passing the responsibility on. As I say, I'm 100% here to be present in that conversation, but my understanding is respective members of the community, such as yourselves, are there to represent us and have those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we need to be part of that. I wouldn't say that security in the CBD is specifically a community board role, but absolutely that if you're coming here with concern, board members should be involved, I would say, to actually support that. That's why I'm suggesting Chris and Satnam as specific board members to be involved with yourself and anyone else they feel is important. I've already told you who I think would be good. So I would suggest, Chris, if you can organise that first meeting and obviously contact Luke because he's got heaps of detail and information, and really appreciate that, Luke.
It's all right. No worries.
Yeah, and sorry if I missed an email in February. My inbox is a mess.
That's all right. I won't take it to heart, mate.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Luke.
You're welcome, everybody. Thank you for your time, and all the best. Thanks.
John, welcome to speak if you would like to.
Sure. It's just I was hoping there might be an update on the bus services. I've just put in the chat the minute that you've got from 6 weeks ago, and I'm just wondering what happened with that, or what is happening, because it seems to me that the wharf improvements are pressing ahead, and that's going to encourage even more people to go to the wharf, but there's still no solution in sight for the issue of parking, which we've all been looking at for years now. and that the internal bus would have been one of the solutions to that. So it seems to me that if indeed the works can go ahead on the wharf, then the work also ought to go ahead on sorting out the parking as far as a bus can do it. So that's my question.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. Alison, did you want to speak to that?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. So, John, Gareth has drafted a report that will go through to the Infrastructure Committee. The finance team are just helping him iron out some of the funding items within that report, and so we're expecting it to go through to the next Infrastructure Committee, at which point in time Council will determine whether they're happy to do this without subsidy. So the issue is that it would be the first time we've done something which you can gain subsidy for without waiting for subsidy to be received. So it sets a bit of a precedent, but that's for the council to determine when they receive that report. So he's certainly written it and thinking it's a good idea to do this trial. I think it's a trial service for 2 years and see how we go.
Because the long-term plan had 100,000 a year set aside for each of 3 towns, I think. Is that right?
But we didn't get the subsidy
near the end of the first year.
Yeah. So we didn't get the subsidy. The normal approach is that So the timing of when we get our subsidy confirmed by Waka Kotahi falls after the time you've set in place your budgets. And then we have to do the mad scramble to change around budgets because we don't have enough subsidy to do the entire work program. So that's the situation that we've been in, and Gareth has been trying to find how might we be able to fund this if we're going to do it without subsidy.
Thanks for that, Alison. So it sounds like, John, next Infrastructure Committee, there'll be some feedback from Council about this, and thanks for following it up. I agree, it would be really great. So I think I welcome Sam as well to the meeting. And did you want to speak to anything, Sam, at the moment, or are you just here to listen in?
Oh, just here to listen in. Thanks, Gabrielle.
Yeah, thanks for joining. So I think that we will wrap up our public forum now. Thank you very much for speaking. And I think we've got some clear actions from those things. So we're going to move on now to our reports. And so let me look at my notes here. Okay, move on to reports. So we're going to start with the Works and Issues report, which is on page 42. So what we'll do is we're going to start with the topic of the wastewater discharge. It's on page 47. Wastewater discharge, issue 3 waters reform and the wastewater consent. And we have Steve here and Matthew to speak to this. So we know we have that meeting this evening as well. So Matthew, would you like to start? Welcome to our meeting. And would you like to start with any updates that you have, or if you want to ask some questions of the board to kind of know where to go, then let's just have a chat about these things.
Madam Chair, just to interrupt, so the 3 waters reform update I'll be providing. So both Matt and Stephen are here to address the operational issues that have been raised.
Okay, so thank you for that, Alison. Would you like to do that first then? The 3 waters.
Sure. So, I'm not sure how closely you've been following what's happening in the 3 waters space. So in terms of the update, you'll know that the government had progressed this 4 water entities instead of the 78 councils looking after water, wastewater and stormwater. There was then a group set up to work through some of the issues that have been found through the consultation. The government cabinet have reviewed those recommendations and they have largely adopted those recommendations. So the issues raised were around ownership. So still that sort of environment of distrust around privatisation of water over time. So There's a new mechanism that's been announced around councils having ownership that's proportionate to their population. So we will effectively, as a council, have a share in the new entities. The other thing was around the how do we get the local voice into the prioritisation of projects? So they've done that. They haven't wanted to water down the skills-based approach to setting boards for these entities, because it's important they have the skills and capacity and capabilities to run the three waters. But they have beefed up what's happening at that governance level. Certainly that desire to have co-governance alongside iwi and Māori is still very clear in what's been decided. And then the other thing they've done is they've set up smaller subcommittees that will actually provide information into those broader governance things, so that there is that true local voice coming through in that piece. So the government's definitely pushing on with this. Just to note, the reform does straddle an election period. So the entities, there's some funding being made available at the moment, and there's a lot of work happening under the National Transition Unit. But the entities don't become live until the 1st of July 2024, by which time an election will have come and gone, and we're unclear where that might put this piece of work. However, we are pushing on as though it's going ahead. So Keith Martin has been put forward as our local representative in the local transition units, and there's 6 work streams, and I know that Tony had a question around stormwater. Stormwater has its own separate work stream, but at this point in time, Te Mata Arawai, the waters regulator, they are focusing on drinking water straight off the bat. That is what they've been set up to do, and they will report and be monitored by the DIA, Department of Internal Affairs. But the Waikato Regional Council will continue, or the regional councils will continue to be the regulator at this point in time for stormwater and wastewater, and they will be, the oversight will come from Te Mata Arawai until they've got their heads around the water, the drinking water space. So yeah, work's continuing. It's quite a heavy workload. So we're getting lots of information requests from the Department of Internal Affairs. So we've had one on the people in our entities that work on waters. We're in the middle of a data and IT information request at the moment, and there's a tranche of information requests to come over the next calendar year that we're preparing ourselves for. So they're really in that data gathering phase. The other thing is that these working groups all have a local government reference group associated with them as well. So in addition to Keith being on the local transition unit, I have got a role in the reference group over the finance and corporate work stream. So as that work kicks off, I'll be a bit closer to what's happening in terms of the tariffs, etc., which of course there'll be a non-disclosure agreement around, but making sure that we get to have our say in what's worked and what hasn't worked as we've worked through transitions with the likes of Auckland, and also as we moved across to Watercare, taking over our waters operations.
I had a question for you, Alison. So you the government's better off in bribe money. When is that available? That's before the entity's formed, right? Your council can apply for that?
Yep. So it's happening in 2 tranches. So you've got the first tranche is basically available. We're pulling together a long list of projects at the moment. That's in conjunction with iwi and Māori groups as well. And so the Better Off funding has some criteria associated with it. We've got the first stage of the criteria. We need to understand if there's going to be mandated weightings to that criteria, but it's things like climate change, adaptation, things that will better communities themselves. So if there's certain projects that will make a difference to a community, and the aim is to not be putting this funding into programs of work that are already funded through your long-term plan, unless you're going to be accelerating them or something, more for new projects that will actually make a difference to your communities. So
would we be eligible? I know that we had some very aspirational work streams in our current wastewater discussions. Could this be something where we could fill the gap between the allocated funding and what the community really wants?
So I guess this better off funding is to be for discrete projects. Certainly the first tranche, we're talking about $7.8 million worth of funding. So it's not significant, so when you're talking about something to do with wastewater, it's probably not going to be substantial enough to get that done. The other thing is that this is largely pitched at the whole community, and one of the constraints, I guess, that we'll have as a district when the council comes to make their decisions on the shortlist is that not all of our district is connected to water, and not all of our district is connected to wastewater. So you might have some issues from rural communities, for example, that see that they're not having the better off funding spent on their wellbeing. So it could be a bit contentious. But all of that stuff is going to be pulled together into the long list, Chris, and then worked through in terms of the criteria, and we'll have things that'll float to the top. And so the aim is to have the funding, the 7.88 million, quite discreet, because if it then doesn't, so if a different government gets in and we don't get the remainder of the $31.5 million worth of funding, then you're not going backwards. You haven't put your eggs in a basket that you can't then afford to complete the projects.
The second tranche is after the election.
The second tranche is after the elections. In fact, I think we apply from the 1st of July 2024 once the new entities are in place, or it's released after that point in time. So we've got until the 30th of September to get our applications in for this particular first tranche of funding. We are aiming to get ours in for the end of July at this stage. So it's quite aggressive time frame. We're expecting to see the long list of projects by the 27th of May, and then getting it down to the short list in sort of June before the councillors make their decision.
Alison, thanks for sharing all of that. Definitely sounds like a lot of work happening across all areas. And just in terms of the Waters Governance Committee, is it the Water Governance Committee? The one?
Governance Board?
Governance Board, yeah. I mean, they would obviously be involved with all of this as well.
Yes.
At the moment. I mean, they've got their current job, but are they going to, in a sense, be so they wouldn't exist at some stage in the future? Be a new.
There's some new sort of governance board at the local level, and then also at the regional entity level.
Yeah. Thank you. Are there any questions from any other board members for Alison? Oh. So I suppose the best way for us as a community board to keep up to date with what's happening through the council would that be me? Would you be discussing these through your council meetings or infrastructure meetings?
They are actually going through to the Waters Governance Board. So there's reporting updates on the water reform go through to their meetings. Those are publicly available agendas when they're talking about that reform work. And then the council, they haven't had an opportunity yet to have this discussion because of it's only just been agreed what the government are pressing on with. But yes, Infrastructure Committee will then also receive an update.
Okay, that's great. So that for us as a board, we know that we can read the Waters Governance agenda and minutes to keep up to date.
And the other thing in terms of the overall reform project, so there is a Three Waters Reform website page that you can get to through the Department of Internal Affairs, and that has all of the working papers, etc. So how it really comes through that government lens rather than council's lens. So
yes, yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that.
One last question through you, Madam Chair. If this all does go ahead, am I right in understanding that any debt the council take on to pay for upgraded water, wastewater, stormwater systems the debt is then also carried over to the new entity?
Yeah, so the entire thing goes across. So your assets go across, your debt goes across. Any councils that have equity associated with it, so if they've created reserves that have money in, that goes across as well. And the reason for that is because as a community, you've already paid for those assets, whether it's through the servicing of debt, etc. So want to make sure there's no payment in this situation, so that actually you're not being double charged for something you've already paid for.
Thank you. So that's great. So I think we've also got on our agenda here an update on from our last board meeting. We were discussing just wastewater, any wastewater issues and overflows, and we were just questioning the reporting and things like that. And there was a discussion about whether we needed to do some more kind of local community campaigning around just doing the right thing, like using the 3Ps work that was done a few years ago. So Tony, are you thinking it would be good to ask questions of Matt and Steve about that today, like in terms of what we might decide to do? I just want to make sure we follow on from what we talked about at our last meeting.
Yeah, it was really just in the service report. We noticed that there was a kick up in overflows, and the explanation was that there was blockages, and so we were asking, are these blockages caused by the public, and is it time to just do a bit of a refresher, refocus on the 3Ps again?
Can you speak at all to that, Matt? Or sorry, Matthew?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm happy to have a relatively open conversation. Obviously, we can have Stephen speak to some elements, and I got a couple of questions, I believe, from Tony that we can speak to. I think fundamentally, yes, always continually reminding people not to put the wrong things down the drain is an imperative. It's the majority of blockages and overflows are generally caused by the wrong thing being put down the drains, in particular wet wipes, which are one that everybody knows a lot about. We've had examples of having to remove nappies on a regular basis. All sorts of things unfortunately go down there. So the 3Ps reminder is something we'd definitely recommend or would hope that community boards can get on board with, and really convey to the communities as much as possible that these are their assets, this is their service, and we need their help to ensure that it operates as it should. We'll always come out and fix problems, but the less problems we have to fix, the more we can focus on just maintaining and improving the assets as they are. So yeah, anything that the community board can do, or we can do to support you to help us on that, we'd be really happy to do.
So Gabrielle, potentially, could we take an action item that with the help of Kitty, through our social media streams, that we resurrect some of that material that we had from the past campaign, and just try and get it out there again, raise awareness again?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we can do without really any funding, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose if we feel that we need more hard materials, in terms of, we had the stickers and just trying to think of the other things around. I imagine they're all still there, like I just...
a lot of the posters are still there, I think, but some of them have changed. I have noticed. So that program, effectively got the poster units on the back of the toilet doors. And I have noticed that some of those posters have changed over to other things that the council wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so I suppose...
So we might need to just refresh those posters back into 3Ps again.
Yeah, and that also wouldn't be a big cost.
No.
I know that we could just get some more posters printed, and is that something that we would get council staff to put around the toilets and things like that, Alison, rather than we as board members kind of going and doing that?
Yeah, let me ask whether that's something we can get Noel to do or something on behalf of council.
Yeah. Actually, while I remember it, this is really random on the side, but it is related to water. And it's, sorry, I just got to throw it in here while I'm here. But the public toilets down by the museum, pretty sure it's there. Or the ones by the, I think it's those ones by the, by Orca. A lot of water runs in them. Like, oh my God, when you flush it, there is so much water. It's just like, I just thought, God, I was going to put a CRM in and just get someone to look at it. But it's kind of ridiculous, really. So I just think that's should be looked at. But sorry, that's really water related, but a little bit lower level than our conversations, maybe. So
I'll leave Alison to kind of work on that one. But actually, as we're on the water topic, you may or may not have noticed this year that that we worked with the council around taking a slightly different approach to water throughout the summer season as well. Obviously, it's quite an important topic out at Raglan because of the population change that happens quite dramatically, as I'm sure you're all aware, over the summer period. So rather than a historic approach that was taken to really align to Hamilton City Council and some of the water restrictions that occur there, a change was made to make a much more catchment-based approach. So really assessing each of the catchments, so Raglan being an example of that, to ensure that we were kind of monitoring how much water use was happening over those summer months and ensuring that if we do need to communicate restrictions, we're doing it based on individual areas, because obviously Raglan is not impacted by what's happening in Narrawahia or what's happening in Huntly, because the water source and the demands are very different. And that was really successful. But I think one of the other elements, very similar to the wastewater 3Ps, is also during that summer period, just supporting that conservation message, which is actually a message that can be done all year round around just ensuring wherever possible, people, exactly as you've said, Madam Chair, is looking to conserve opportunities to conserve water wherever possible, making sure that we're using it for as efficiently as possible, which just goes a long way to ensuring that the water sources we have are used efficiently and well.
Yeah, that's something that we could possibly look at, you know, a bit of promotion around, with some support from council perhaps, or from your team around summer or leading up to summer.
Yeah, we work with the council communications team, and they send out a number of social media events and communication. So even just a sharing or a carrying on of those messages is yes, you know, always contributes to getting the message out there.
Yeah, thank you.
I might hand over to Stephen now just to run through his details, and then Tony, we can come back to your questions around stormwater if that's okay. Stephen.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Matt. I've got we've got a session tonight, and really appreciate Chris and John and others just for bearing with us over the long period that we've had these. I've got the slides prepared for that, and I could easily show them, and for like spend 30 seconds on a slide. There's only 5 slides. Is that what you'd want, or do you just want me to talk through an update?
I reckon if you've got a slide there handy, let's do that if it's straightforward.
Okay.
Yep, thank you, Steve.
Can you see a PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yes, so again, the first page was just intending just to go through some of the themes from the video that we posted last month, just to allow some greater volume and discussion on that point. And it was just keeping it very simple to the 2 key crunchy parts: is treatment upgrade and discharge upgrade. So the treatment upgrade, this is just some work that's it needs to be done really quickly, just to get the TSS under control during this interim bit of time until we get a longer term solution. As part of our consent conditions, and working closely with regional council to get it better aligned with, to get it into compliance. So with the total sustainable soil, it just happens in the warm months, it's just the algae. So it's the work that we're considering now is, that's being put forward and investigated now, is to just think about a solution there that doesn't lead to a stranded asset, which will be part of the longer term solution. And there is ability to do that, and it's it's with coagulant dosing and filtering that out, putting out the flocks out, so it improves the discharge. Again, it's total suspended solid, which is more critical for fresh water, because it can need to have some influence on eutrophication, but it also will theoretically will improve the UV as well. So again, the flocculant that would be used would be polyaluminum chloride, which is just part of the toolbox for water treatment, for water treatment, drinking water treatment. That's what they use for that as well. So the points there was just we've got someone engaged to work through that. Proof of concept trial could be done very, very quickly, and then from there it would be just to have some data to present to the governance board and say this should be something that happens immediate rather than so for next summer. So that was that part of the treatment. The second part, the more the crunchy part of it, is what's the treatment going to look like? What best suits the likely best practical option, which is what as a absolute need for hapu and an absolute need for most of the community as well, with land discharge. So when you look at what we've got there, within the designation, we've got very deep ponds, which is unusual for a lot of New Zealand wastewater treatment plants. They're 3 meters deep. Again, like throughout this discussion, I've talked about the challenge with the winter months when there's water everywhere. No one wants water, but so what did you do with it? Storage has always been talked about, utilising a pond for state-of-the-art technology, and reusing the ponds for storage is a clever concept. It's sensible. So that was something that sort of gave good support to a retrofit to one of the ponds to it's called a sequence batch reactor. It's just playing tunes a little bit with the wastewater, with curtains, and it really pulls down the nutrients and the TSS, and it makes it better suited for a land discharge. With the less nutrients, you need lesser lands. Again, there's other methods, activated sludge, etc., but this was the recommended approach. So it's a point of like, is there other examples where this exists to learn from? There definitely is. It's not new science. The closest one would be in Horatu with Open Country. They've got a retrofitted pond there that they use, and there's other examples for municipal waste as well. So again, it's sort of the next step there was internal engineering refinement, and that's sort of, we had a session today with the team that delivered the Medi MBR, so a very safe pair of hands. The designers, the engineers, particularly Engineer Haiti in the Newmarket office, putting the lens over it, just really digging into it. So I'm happy that there's things happening in that space. The advantage for the discharge, again, it's the treatment is some maybe considered the lesser cousin. It isn't. It's really critical to the discharge, because the lesser nutrients, we're talking about not overloading the soils when we get to the secured sort of sites. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Again, a discharge upgrade. In the video last month, I talked about how, like earlier on in the thing, we've learned a lot since then, and we're saying that the existing system, Aquamats, that's the old model. It's not going to suit any discharge. So there is an upgrade needed there. So changing the shortlisted options is just evolution, and it also of the project, and it just shows thoroughness. And the part there that I just wanted to highlight was the 20, with a new lens put on it from an alternative subsurface drip expert. 24 hectares for the 2020 flow, 42 hectares for the 2050 flow was what was modelled with the existing system. When you get the nutrients lower, you actually get to lower the hectareage as well. So that's the balance. And again, with this map, I just wanted to really just highlight that squiggly line there, and it's just very rough. And that I've put together where the slug of the younger loamy soils are. It's not in the lower lands. It's up in the higher lands. So this is really the fuller solution will always be with the loamier soils. The clay soils will always need to have an alternative discharge to accompany them in the winter. So again, the key question, when you're gonna, how's it going? And it's sort of, this is the tricky part, which has been the treatment's easy, but it's something we can control. The discharge and finding a willing buyer partnership is the harder part. But we're really having a relaunch. We had an additional meeting today with WDC, particularly Carol, who's great, Keith, our property manager there. It's not just me doing this, there's a team around it. Just talking about what can we do? We have to prepare some business cases for some two willing partners who have been great. We haven't been able to, along Mangatafu Road and Tuia Road. Key principles are purchase of the land will always be better for a public asset. It'll be a public asset for a time without end. Now would be the time to do it. If it can be done, a purchase that would definitely be in the older, in the younger soils. You wouldn't be messing around with clay soils from that perspective. It's just unachievable. You always go to a lease, but have a secondary partner to work with. From a risk perspective, you'd always need an alternative discharge point when things go horribly wrong at 5 o'clock in the morning in the middle of a 1 in 10 year storm. Being out, just having a lease and an operating farm for someone's business is really tricky. So that would be what would be a no-brainer. The third one, if we can prove and bring it to the community, prove it, so we've done everything we possibly can to do it, to achieve it, then we start saying, how do other councils do it? And it's the talk of the public land use. Again, this is what it's been talked about, and it seems it's sort of like, why don't you just default to that? Again, it's the clayey soils wouldn't make it a full system in itself. The reliance here would be for going to a gully system down to these lower sands for high rate, which that's just theoretical. There's a lot more to it. Again, there's could be like putting it out there. There's been some feedback already, which I really, really understand. It's a big leap, and it's the questions are why introduce hormones, etc., to an area that hasn't got it. This is for other uses, etc. And that's absolutely correct. It's a big leap for any council to co-use it. There could be an opportunity to showcase an area within the public asset, just to demonstrate how water is a resource. But again, that wouldn't be a discharge solution. That'll be a reuse example. So wouldn't really want to reserve money for that too quickly. So again, I'm going to have to put an extra slide in there for John so he turns up tonight. Just so I don't want to give away all my information, but hopefully that's a good little roundup to show where we're at.
Yeah, that's great, Steve. Thanks very much for that. Good little insight. And I suppose for those board members who won't be able to make it to the meeting this evening, it will just give you a sense of where it's at. So are there any questions for Stephen from board members?
That's what I like. That's what I like.
Steve and I.
Yes, yeah. Chris is gonna like, but it's good. It's really healthy discussion with Chris, because regional council is always there. John's always there, and Councillor Beach is always there. Is there chairing things. Cool.
Yeah.
I'll let you get on with your agenda.
Maybe tonight you could update your microphone because it's quite windy.
Oh, I've got a fan. Actually, I'll turn that off. Yeah. It's getting hot. Matt's putting the temperature up to get everyone sort of like. No, it's just busy work. So we're getting our sweats up. It's really hot.
Got to keep busy. Got to keep busy. Yeah. Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, and I think kind of just reiterating, I think that everyone involved, on Watercare side, council side, and people like John and the community have really put a lot of time and effort to get it to where it is now, and it has been a journey to get to this point. But I think we're confident we're starting to get towards the conclusion, which is great, around what's the best outcome for Raglan. So really happy with that. So Tony, I think you provided a couple of questions. So if it's all right, Madam Chair, I'll just run through those and then we can take any kind of general questions or inquiries anyone has. So Tony, I think it was really focused on the testing that we've recently been doing in the area. So we have completed the testing. It has come back. So this is on a 5-year cycle under the requirements of the conditions of the consent. And so that testing result has to come back saying that there may be some background levels of natural contaminants due to the kind of geological kind of formations in the area. But it hasn't really highlighted any other significant concerns at this stage for us to be aware of. We have been doing first flush testing for about 2 years now, and at this stage, we're doing more testing in that area with the stormwater strategy, because we are looking at creating the stormwater strategy for the area quite soon, and the information from this testing and the other work that's been done in the area by Andrew Bordero, I think you'll remember him having attended, will be used to support that strategy. And unfortunately, Andrew's actually left the organisation, so we're in the process of finding a new stormwater specialist, which I'm not sure if you've ever had to recruit a stormwater specialist. They're pretty light on the ground. It's quite a specialised area, but we are hopefully in the point of final stages of that, which is great. So the idea is to continue the work Andrew's done and make sure it doesn't drop off at all. So the stormwater strategy, we will be looking to consult with the community groups on that, including yourselves, and just to kind of continue on that groundwork that Andrew's already done. The other question, Tony, I think you had was around the 4 bay maintenance and whether that had been completed. So I'm happy to say it has been. So the work's been completed. So that includes pipes have been vacuumed and cleaned, vegetation has been removed from around the 4 bay, and sediment around the outlet pipe has been removed. We are, one of the recommendations we have is just to do another inspection soon, just to see how that maintains, and if we need to look at doing more regular work or maintenance work or activity. So once we've given that a bit of time, we'll go back in there and just see what the condition of everything is and whether there's any issues we need to deal with. Not so much one of the questions you had, but we just an update on one of the other projects we have in the area. So Canberry Road flood mitigation project is underway. So we've got the design for that now. So we're just finalising the details on the design, at which point we'll be seeking a consent. And once we have that consent, then construction will start. So we're looking to the expectation is to start or kind of finish the construction in summer next year. So that's summer this. Let's call it summer this year. Depends on when summer starts. Just to get that work. So now that we've got the design and we know what we need to do, it's really just about getting on and doing it. So that's good. One of the other points you asked was around the potential impact of on stormwater discharge requirements under Three Waters. So, Alison's given quite a detailed update on Three Waters. But it is also kind of highlighted that stormwater and wastewater will continue to sit under WRC for a period of time, and with although there's a long way to go in this, the expectation would be that any consents that currently sit in relation to water, stormwater or wastewater will transfer over to the entities. So the conditions that we are currently bound by will also be bound by. So So I think the simple answer there is there's probably no immediate change to the requirements, even after the change does take place. And it's really when those consents come up for review and renewal that'll really see what new direction kind of we're looking to take stormwater and wastewater and those other elements in the future. But again, happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thanks for that, Matthew. So, looking at it's looking in good condition. I can actually report that I've seen the eels swimming around in it, and, lots of bird life, and the plant life is coming back to life. So I think we have actually made a little bit of a difference there. Something has changed. I think potentially we are getting more fresh water coming back into the environment there that potentially had been bypassing. On the testing, it was more about we'd received some high E. coli, and we were wanting it was going out for genetic testing to see if it was animal or human, and that was really with respect to just to make sure that we hadn't got a sewer pipe break somewhere, because we previously up in that valley up and behind the rugby club, we had an incident of a residential sewer line that instead of going towards the road, it actually crossed all the way across the farmland, the wetland up there, and had been running for quite a while through a break.
Yeah, so I do have the again, with Andrew leaving, some of the expertise in that area is gone, but we're actually still utilising him, thankfully. But we do have the report that we can provide you, just as I said, which does close out those questions really for us around the nature of where that was coming from, and is it caused by, as you said, contaminants from the network or other things, or is it runoff? And so the initial response I received back from Andrew is that it does not appear to be from the wastewater network or the surrounding area, but specifically from any breakages or issues that are causing that.
Okay.
But I'm happy to provide a copy of that report to you, Tony, if you'd like to just have a review of it. Other questions? You've got the stormwater committee distribution list? I don't actually know, but I'm sure I can get that. That's no problem. Okay, because
it is a consent group. The community board is just a passive watcher on that. Okay, no, absolutely, that'd be good. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks very much, Matt. And Stephen, that's really helpful to have. Really appreciate you coming, just so we can have a chat face to face. Might be good to do that once a year or something as time goes on with the board. I'd be happy to do that. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Yeah. Right, so we're going to move on now to the rest of the items in our works and issues. So we've got Manu Bay. As far as I know, there is a meeting either going to be on the 30th of May or the 1st of June. Haven't actually had confirmation of that yet, have we, Dennis? And Dennis, do you want to say anything about what you're going to do next?
No, excuse me. Couple of questions, Alison. Firstly, have we actually paid Tim Clark over the last 2 years for the work he's done on this, which is really just deferred meeting after meeting?
I'm not entirely sure. Let me come back to you on that. I'll send an email after the board meeting.
Yeah, okay, that'd be good. And also, I'm going to chase Tim Clark up this week, just to make sure that this meeting's going ahead, because 2 years now he's actually just deferred one meeting after another for COVID reasons. Well, that's been his excuse, and there are a lot of frustrated people out there now. Gabriel and I got an email the other day from Sports Fishing Club, which I'll reply to Gabriel, just giving them a heads up on where it is, but they're pretty frustrated that it's still sitting with Tim.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dennis. It was quite good to see, though, that they did send out the report that the Sports Fishing Club had initiated. So I think it was the first time that they'd done that to the working group. Is that right? To the stakeholder group?
I'm not sure, but that report's quite old now.
No, I still thought it was kind of good that they'd done that, but anyway, by the by. Okay, so civil defence, no update. When Lisa comes back from holiday, we will be meeting together. We can make a time. Wastewater, we've just done that one there. Wenera will come to that in the report a bit later. And Orca, when the roading engineer comes back from holiday as well, then we will meet, Chris, you and I, with Gareth. He's happy to do that anytime. We just need to make a date with him about the Orca crossing.
We make a note to add when we have that meeting the car block to see if we can try and find some money for the public forum. The guy was talking about the dangers along that footpath. We could add that to that meeting.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We could do that. So I think it would be good, Gayleen, to add to the works and issues the point that Nick Hammond raised, which is the wheel stops for the car parks in front of SuperValue on Bow Street. Yeah.
Sorry, I had picked that up in public forum as an action.
Thanks. Yeah. And I think as well, would we add to the works and issues the action around the security, the CBD security? That's great. Thank you for that. So are there any questions or anything? We've received the report on page 49, which Tonkin and Taylor did. Are there any comments or anything that the board members have on this report that we would want to send back through Alison to council, or are we just happy to see how it progresses? Obviously, there's some information there as well about the potential railings and safety of the walkway.
I guess the question, Gabriel, is what's the next step? Because Tonkin and Taylor don't indicate anything. They've done a report. That report's now back with us and WDC. So I guess the question is, what's the next stage? Are we looking to get some price? Are we looking to get a price to do a design and construction, or what? Because I guess the report's sitting with Megan at the moment. So I guess she's going to need some direction on where to go from here.
Yeah, I'm sure that. Yeah, I don't know if you know the answer to that, Alison. I imagine. I'm just wondering if it was in our last meeting. Let's have a quick look here.
I'll find out what next steps are and put that in an email.
So it says here on our last meeting agenda, page 37, it said that it outlined the key findings. Steps will be consideration of design options with Tonkin and Taylor. And through the annual plan process, the team have applied to bring the funding for repair and replacement forward to next financial year.
Right. So just to give you an update, so if they have done that through the annual plan, then we haven't made any additional changes, so that will still be part of the annual plan.
So what you're saying is basically Megan or whoever's team it is in council will be working in terms of the next, like the design of what needs to happen and funding possibly through annual plan.
Yeah. Yeah. So an annual plan kicks off, the money becomes available from the 1st of July this year.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Through you, Madam Chair, probably for Alison. At what point is the council going to start considering the new information from the government's sea level rise research and affecting assets in that 1 to 2 metre zone? So
I guess it will be imminent, but we haven't really digested it just yet. But certainly some of the long list projects on that better off funding, some of the suggestions have been, is there anything in that managed retreat space given what's been announced recently? So they are thinking about it.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Tony?
Yeah, is more of, so that is Harbour Board land area. So wouldn't the remediation come, wouldn't we be able to fund that out of the Harbour Board funds as R&M? Because the bridge was part funded out of Harbour Board funds as well. And therefore potentially we could, move a little bit faster on it, and not potentially also not be constrained on the design, because I had raised earlier, and it's not mentioned in the TNT report, that while we're in there, we make sure it's wide enough. We make sure, and that way we can potentially deal with some of the TNT report doesn't talk about any of there is erosion happening, and it's not on the seaside. It's actually on the upside to the properties, the edge of the property, because there is no not embankment. There's no retaining walls on that side, and you can see quite a lot of erosion is happening, and so we might have to go wider and also incorporate better lighting in that area. So I think let's try and not make sure that we're not keeping it just a scope of the seawall and some railings. Let's actually say, right, this is our opportunity. We're going to touch this. Let's only touch it once, and let's make it, do well. As we get more people, more tourists, and that, there are times there where it gets quite, it's very narrow and it gets quite constricted now.
So I suppose that's that's not necessary for Tonkin and Taylor, but it's for us to
No,
council.
no, it's for council in terms of it's for council to specify if Tonkin and Taylor are doing design options. It is to include that in the statement of work for them to have that holistic view to fix all of the issues that are in that area. And it's not scope creep, it is all of the issues associated with that seawall walkway.
Yes, yeah, because I do talk about the walkway, and so that's quite related, the lighting and basically the other side of the walkway, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, if there was any like water coming down or kind of eroding underneath that way, or yeah,
I think it's maybe frost or water or something, but there's definitely erosion, active erosion is happening on children, yes, on that upper side bank.
Yeah. So Alison, what's your thoughts there in terms of just actually us looking at this job a bit more broadly, I suppose, is what.
Yeah, so I will, through you, Madam Chair, I'll have a discussion with Megan after our meeting today. So there's a couple of things to be raising with her. So I'll have a discussion with her. And I just wanted to, earlier when Luke in the public forum talked about the camera being moved from Orca onto the airfield. Megan has confirmed that it's not the situation. The camera that was put on the airfield came from Te Kaupara.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Just, clarify that.
Yeah, well, people don't know sometimes, do they, what is exactly going on, and if they've got a bit concerned about something, then they'll be more alert to what's happening or not. Yeah, and if you need any kind of like more information from us as the board about like what Tony's just been talking about, then Megan could come back to us. Or yeah, that's a good point though, Tony. Thank you. And I suppose as well, I imagine that the design would come back. I mean, I think the board are probably more interested in the walkway design than the actual sea wall. But are we wanting that to come back to the board once the designs have been drawn up so that we can look at that?
I'm just picking up on Tony's point, Madam Chair. I think there's probably a next step before that, and that's highlighting the points that Tony's raised. What are the outcomes that we're looking for from the design, so that we actually present that to them before they actually get to the design stage?
Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So I need to
next.
Yeah. That'll come next. Good point. Okay.
Because that, even yes, you could replace the seawall with what's appropriate, or like we have done with the wharf, you know, is this the opportunity to potentially put some step seating, you know, there,
yeah,
and so it becomes more of a instead of being utilitarian, it becomes actually more people centric. You know, now provides access down to the water on that side.
If you think about the Whangaroa Harbour study, it's identified a couple of things along that area as well. That, you know, it's an opportunity to take those into consideration as well.
Yeah, that's right. Just making a little note here. Okay, so, and Megan's aware of the harbour study and things and of what the things that are going on there, so she'll be quite up to speed, which is great. Okay, so we're just going to move and keep moving. There's all those pages on the report, and I think that's the end of works and issues. Let me just check this here. The only other thing, actually, Nick Hammond didn't mention it, but I just think I may as well mention it while we're here. Maybe he just wanted to focus on one of the issues that he'd raised with council rather than all of them, which was probably good. But he did also, in terms of his accident and the narrowness of Wainui Road between, let's say, the museum and the one-way bridge, which is very narrow, and that's kind of around where he had his accident. He was kind of advised from council staff when they looked at his service request, actually really, for inexperienced riders, it's not really the safest route. And actually they should really go across the footbridge and in the new Papahua pathway. That's kind of where the money's being put to create that access through, I suppose, all the way out to the beach. And then he raised the issue that actually on the on the footbridge, you know, when it's really busy, it's not actually appropriate really for people to be cycling across there. It's pretty busy. And so he was suggesting maybe, I don't know, this is just another thing, but I'd raise it. He was suggesting maybe having some sort of cyclist dismount signs at the end of the footbridge. So I don't know whether, if you've got board members have got any comment on that, or whether we want to have a look into that further. Kind of like, I mean, I know it does get pretty.
The times I ride, most cyclists I see going over that bridge right over the footpath, and when we've been walking across it, if they've come towards us, they've dismounted and walked past us and then ridden on. So most of them just actually don't cycle across the bridge itself. They cycle use a footpath all the way along there. Yep. But signs would be quite appropriate, I think.
So let's just keep an eye on it, shall we, as board members, when we're hanging around, walking around, see if it actually is an issue from our point of view.
I think the more relevant things he raised, which on Wainui Road, particularly coming up from the town side, there's a couple of stormwater traps on the side of the road, at 1 metre on the edge of the road before the footpath, which are sunk down probably 200, which probably are pretty unsettling for cyclists, and they could probably be fixed up and brought up to road surface level.
Yeah, so the response he got back from those is that those grates are going to be upgraded across the district, and the high use routes are going to be done first. And it seemed like maybe this wasn't one, so it's kind of like some work that would be done, but in the future. So yeah, that's just that.
Well, we can ask to be provided with those high cycle use locations and see if any of them in Raglan and if any of them align with you know, to me Wainui Road for Raglan is a high, you know, cycle use road, and sorry, brain fog. Road up to the school would be another one, because that is very narrow along there.
Oh, you mean
Norrie Avenue?
Yeah, thank you.
Which one, Dennis?
Norrie Avenue.
Oh yeah, Norrie. Yep. Oh, okay, yeah. Yep, we can ask that. So I think maybe is that something that staff could, Alison, we could have action through this? So I can't remember the name. It was Alex, I think he was, from Alliance. Maybe Alex Crane, just top of my head. He responded to Nick, or it might have been another Nick actually, but anyway.
Okay.
Yep. I think that would be good to know actually, just as we're wanting to improve cycling and safety across the community town. Let's find out if there are any planned, and we can get back to Nick then. That'd be great. Okay, well done everyone. Moving on to now
Back to the discretionary report, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that. So page 11. We've got or page 12 really, as we've got our statement report here. There's just a couple of things on this here. I was actually curious to know whether, and I can just go back to the Arts Council, I was just curious to know whether the funds of $1,000 that we did allocate to them in August 2021 was actually used. I can't remember if the red carpet evening happened in any way. Any of you remember that? But anyway, I can go back and check that. I just thought that's just one thing I thought there. Was it used? In terms of the money that went to the Environment Centre of $5,000 for Maui, hasn't happened. But we did get a little update from, which was helpful, from Jasmine at the Environment Centre, just to say that, just to let us know that they're still planning some Maui Dolphin Day events. They're doing a science night, possible beach clean, a kids treasure hunt, and then working with the senior students at Raglan Area School around marine conservation. So just letting you know, they did get $5,000 and that they are planning to do something with it related. And a question to you, Alison, please. The $3,000 which we committed in February to the DMO still hasn't been paid. I got chased up. Sometimes these things are quite slow for some reason.
Sorry, has an invoice been sent through? I haven't seen anything.
Yep.
Okay.
23rd of March, I think. Oh, 3rd of March.
Right, okay. I'll figure out why that hasn't happened.
And I've processed it, Alison, so I'm not quite sure what's happening there. I can check with finance as well.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for
I'll
that.
raise that.
They sent me an email and just said, yep. And just in terms, before we go into the funding application that we've got here, I had a little chat with Leanne from Council just around the discretionary fund, because we've had quite a few inquiries. I suppose it's new for us having the inquiries coming directly to us. Usually they would go through Council staff. So, we're now needing to consider those and speak to people, which is all cool. But I just said to Leanne, I feel that we as the board probably need a little bit of either training, or we as a community board, I think, need to develop our own process and our guide for the discretionary fund. It feels like we don't really have something very clear. So she agreed that it probably needs to happen across all the boards and committees, or the boards across the district. And I just need to send her an email to state that that's what we need. But I'm just letting you board members know that I feel that's important that we do that, certainly in the next few months, so that we leave the end of this year very clear just how we manage the discretionary fund. I don't know if there's any comments from you, but otherwise we're happy Chris?
I just had a question for Galen regarding the $5,000 for Maui Dolphin Day. And obviously that's not going ahead. So you've had a conversation with Jasmine, but because is there any requirements on the Environment Centre to report back if they're not doing the Maui Dolphin Day, then exactly what events they're doing and how they're spending the money? Because it just seems a little bit murky.
I think that's probably one reason why we need to really be clear about what the process is and what we expect from people, because it's not very clear even what we're really saying. It's kind of a little bit random. But Galen, you might have a comment on that.
Well, it's like they have to fill in an accountability report for when they do utilise the funds and everything and draw down on the funds after they've got the funds. So they should be, and it's right that they contact you, Gabrielle, because you're the person on the board that was looking at the applications and everything. But they will need to actually get that formally approved through council or through the board, sorry, to change those events. So they've been given $5,000 for this amount, for this purpose, but they're changing that now. They actually have a requirement to come back to the board and report on that to the board and get the resolution updated as to your approval to do those events instead with your money, because it's your money.
And look, we have had a fair bit of this happening in over the last year and a half, where people have been paid because they've been good at getting their invoice in, and they're wanting the money in order to fund whatever's happening. And then we've had lockdowns, all sorts of things. And so there were a number of events where people have been paid and they have been coming back to the community committees or community boards and saying, obviously we couldn't spend it for that purpose. Are you okay if we spend it for this purpose instead? So
yeah, that's right. And actually, I'm just thinking back. We did actually meet. It was probably a couple of months ago now, but we actually met with Lisa Thompson and myself, met with Jasmine from WEC and a couple of other people, maybe somebody from Extreme, because they were at that point, they were deciding whether to actually try and hold the event in some way or not. We had to consider, like, you know, was it be a vaccine pass or so they actually asked us to join the meeting, so to input into that decision making. And at that point, they did ask, you know, if we can't run it, are you happy as the board for us to do these other, you know, related but smaller events? And we actually, at that time, Lisa and I said, yes, that sounds great.
That's not we're the whole board. You can't just say that on behalf of the board.
Yeah, but we felt at the time, Chris, that that was okay to do. Okay, but this is really fine. This is why we need to have the discussion. And that's why I raised it straight away, is to say that I'm very aware that our board processes around the whole of the discretionary fund is not very clear now that we're actually operating it more directly ourselves. And I've already spoken to Leanne about it. So I'm kind of really aware that it needs to be improved. But I think what's been helpful is just you raising that, and Gayleen just saying, yeah, it would be good really practice for them to come back to the board if they're, and, you know, that was me even just questioning, I wonder if the Arts Council have actually spent their $1,000 to do the red carpet. I don't think that happened. So what's happening there, you know?
So the point is, if they don't hold the event, the money, and in a lot of the cases for the community boards, we have had a lot of money returned for grants for Santa parades and everything that community boards funded during that COVID period. And when we locked down, they couldn't hold those events. So that money, those organisations actually returned that money straight away to council and then reapplied for future events. And that's how it should happen.
And I just feel you're putting those organisations in a jeopardy, at a difficult place, if you and Lisa are giving assurances that, oh yeah, okay, spend the money on those other things, and not actually bringing it back to the board first before you give assurances to community organisations that they're okay to spend the money in a different way.
Yep, no, I hear what you're saying, Chris. Yeah. So I suppose at the moment, with that in mind, I'm just thinking about if they are organising these things now because of the conversation that was had, then is it important maybe that now we as a board, because we're here, that we have some conversation about whether we're okay. She's given us an update where we're actually okay for them to be, we can still ask for them to come and be more specific about what they're doing and report. But I think because it's actually, you know, they're possibly organising it now, I feel actually, you know, there is a responsibility to not muck them around. So can I ask that I read out what Jasmine has said, and that at the moment I would like to hear from the board members. If like at the moment, if you all say, no, we're not happy with that, then I feel like I'd probably need to go back to her and do something soon. Whereas if you all say, no, generally we're happy with the changes of the way the event's being run, then I would still go back to her and say, can you formally kind of report back to the board with more detail about what you're doing? But do you think that makes sense, Galen, that we should do that now, seeing this has come up?
Well, I think you need to get a steer from the board. If you and Councillor Thompson have already said to them, yeah, that looks like okay, but I think you need a steer from the board today about, or else you'll have to go back and say to them, no, stop it. You'll need to, the board's not in full support of this.
Have they given you updated budgets for these new events?
No, they haven't. So the money they applied for before was towards the cost of the project, of the Maui Day project. So it wasn't like the full cost of the it wasn't
We had a breakdown of expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm just thinking, I'm just trying to remember what they actually asked for the money for. I'm sorry, I can't remember that. I think it was just money towards the general project rather than specific, like advertising or getting someone in or, I mean, I can look that up if we need to pretty quickly here. That was in January. Do you want me to have a quick look at that now and see what they actually asked for it for? Would that be good?
No, because I remember that they laid out, this is staging, this is truck rent, they kind of just, this is the total cost of running Maui Dolphin Day. We were asking for this much for it. So it was, it was effectively funding for the day. It wasn't anything in particular.
Yeah.
And that,
so I think, thanks for that, Tony. I think the thing is, when we spoke with them, was that it didn't make sense to try and run the event at the time. It just wasn't appropriate and it just wouldn't have worked well. And they were still really keen to, because Maui Dolphin Day, yes, it's a community day, which is important, but it's also around the awareness raising for conservation of the oceans and the health of Maui dolphins. So they felt that they could still run some smaller events which would be under the Maui Dolphin umbrella, and that they wanted to kind of keep it going rather than to wait for another whole year to do that. So
we could have reapplied, like Galen said, like the proper process would have been to refund the money and reapply in the next round, and then for the new project with all what the project was and how much it costs and how much they need, because we've got to hold all groups to the same level. We can't just, because they're trusted and we know them, we can't just kind of,
Yeah, so I think at the time, Lisa and I, Lisa's the obviously the councillor and I'm the chair of the board. It wasn't just any board member kind of joining and just saying yes, that we felt that it was suitable at the time. I really find now, though, that we're talking about it, and I think what Galen is suggesting is that we get a steer from the board members. I totally hear what you're saying, Chris, and that's why I'm saying we need to have really good processes, because we don't want to be having these conversations very often, right? But I would like to get a steer from you as members, whether you feel it's appropriate that if this is the way that Maui Dolphin event is happening this year, that you are happy for the funds we gave them to go towards this. And if you are, what do we want to see from them?
Just query, Madam Chair. You sort of said that they're going to run a scaled down event. Our $5,000 was only part of the funding for Maui Dolphin Day. So they've obviously got money in hand or money from somewhere else that they will also put in towards that day. The question now is, the new event is, what is it going to cost in total? And how much additional money over what they already had do they actually need? So I don't think it's a matter of just saying it's now $5,000. I think it's like Chris and Tony indicated, we need to see a budget and a breakdown of what they're planning. And if they now only need, perhaps they wanted they needed 10,000 before, we gave them 5. If they now only got an event that's going to cost 6, then they really only want 1 out of us. So I think we need to have that transparency.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, that we can actually ask them, so she's outlined here a science night to be at the pub with Phil McCabe, beach clean, hopefully at Tiako with the fishing club, kids treasure hunt town-wide with medals for participants, and Raglan area school meeting with Louisa and planning to engage the seniors in marine conservation. So that's what that is what they have got at the moment that they're planning. So generally, are you in support of those events instead of Maui Dolphin Day? Just generally. And then if you are in support, then I'm happy to go back to Jasmine and ask her for her overall kind of project budget again, and what contribution she feels that they still need from the community board out of the 5,000. No, obviously no more than that, but do they still need that much? If not, then we might be asking as a board that they return some of it. So,
I think Madam Chair, the first part is it's not our place to say, the activities. It's just the funding. So I think it's just all we need is what if that's the activities that they want to do. That's fine. Price it up. Tell us how much of the total price you want us to fund, and that's it. And then we so our next meeting will be what? July, late June.
But if they're needing to, if they are organising these things and they're getting on with them, then we may, as a board, maybe have to make a decision through email in the meantime before the next board meeting. So I'm really happy to find out about timing from her, what's important in terms of timing, and of the funding. But obviously it's kind of important what they're doing a little bit. We do care, because if they said, oh no, we're not even going to do anything to do with Maui Dolphin Day, we're going to do tree planting with that money. Well, then obviously we wouldn't be okay with that, right? So I think.
Well, we might be. Again, it's tree planting. Effectively, they're applying for new,
we just need
funding from the discretionary. Yeah.
Have they given you any budget breakdowns of these new events?
No.
So that's what we need.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's clear. I'm happy to go back to Jasmine and ask for that and bring it back to the board. If there's a bit of a timing pressure, then we'll just bring it back to the board by email.
And I'll put it as an action in the minutes as well, Madam Chair.
Sounds great.
And we'll just table that email approval for minute in the next meeting.
That's if it's of a time constraint. If it's not of a time constraint, it should really go to your full board meeting in June.
Yeah, unless it's urgent or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going forward for any future situations like this, maybe we have a process that kind of clearly states if the specific funding doesn't get used, that we actually have a process where they return it and reapply. And so if anyone hits you up in the future, you've got a process to be a hold on.
Absolutely, that's why I'm going to work with Leanne. Yeah, that's good. Thanks for raising it. Good questions and comments. Thank you for that, board members. So we're going to move on now to the application from Ruby Gibbs, which really is on page 22. So I don't know if any of you had a chance. I actually sent some questions through to Ruby just after I looked at the application, and I saw that there wasn't a quote included, which should have been there. So she sent through her quote for printing, which I emailed to you all. You may have had a chance to look or not. And I also asked her some questions, which, because she wasn't able to attend the meeting today, I just needed to get a little bit more information from her, which I actually put in an email. I also sent to you all as board members to have a look at. But I'm happy to go over what she said there. Maybe I'll just do that first so that we've all got the same information to hand. So I said, how much are you applying to the board for? It wasn't super clear to me. Is it $1,000 or $2,500? And she said that she'd be applying for a further print run of 2,000 booklets, which would be $2,500. The 1,500 from the league covered my most recent print run of 1,000 copies. And she's got $200 remaining from the league's funding. So I said, how many
booklets she wants to print?
2,000.
2,000.
Yeah. So she said the cost for a print run of 2,000 is $2,500, and a cost for a print run of 1,000 is $1,300. Then she's provided the quote, which is for 2,000. copies. I asked her would they be distributed in Raglan Whangaroa area, because obviously she's working in other communities as well, and she said yes, they would be. And I asked how and where do you plan distributing them? And she said, I currently have the toolbox available in multiple businesses in town and also have requests from private psychologists and other health practitioners to give to their patients, and also from Raglan Area School to distribute to teachers and children there. I hope with a larger print run, I can distribute the toolbox further afield and get it into as many hands as possible. And I just asked her, had she applied to the Lions Club? And she said, no, she hadn't. And I just asked her for a little bit of background, which I'm happy to read out if you would like me to. Would that maybe be helpful? Maybe you all haven't had a chance to have a read. Want to hear it? Thumbs up, speak. Yep, okay. So she said, the toolbox came about in May last year when my sister was struggling with her mental health. I wanted to do something for her, to give some advice and some tips that I have learned. So I got my pencils out, created the original version. On the same day that I gave it to her, a close friend of mine committed suicide. This was so unbelievably tragic, but the timing of it made me realize how much support we all need and how we need to talk about our mental health more. My friends and family encouraged me to design and distribute the toolbox, so I gathered up a bunch of artist friends. We designed the current version. I launched the toolbox in Whangaroa in February, and the response has been incredible. People from all walks of life have told me how it's helped them and how they've shared it. My goal for this project is to encourage people to speak about mental health, take the time every day to prioritize it. I can now see as the project gets bigger that this resource can be used to help so many people, more people, and I hope that I can distribute it further. I've been working with Mike Edmonds, who is helming the mental health program at Poihaka Marae, to get a Te Reo version completed to make it more accessible to everyone in our community. He's able to help me with funding also, but we are only at the early stages currently. Thanks. I hope this covers everything, and let me know if you have any more questions. So there you go. So I feel like we've got everything to hand. So any questions from, obviously you can't ask them of Ruby because she's not here, but are there any questions or any comments from any board members?
Just a question, maybe I'm a bit naive, but the documentation that what we've got in front of us, is that the whole toolbox?
Yes, it is.
Is there a software system that you can link into and have a look for a whole lot more information?
No,
because
that's it. It's a little booklet.
Okay, just seems extremely basic to me. That was all. I don't know what other thoughts are. You know, there's only one page, for example, that refers you to anyone, and it's sort of it's visit mentalhealth.org or text 1737. Whereas there's an awful lot of other organisations like Youthline and various other ones that you can actually access for additional help that I would have thought they would have gone into, particularly if this is something she's just going to leave in shops or places for people just to pick up.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks for your comments. Well, Tony, did you want to say something?
I just following on from Dennis's comment is as this is Raglan Raglan folk, we're funding Raglan things and that I kind of agree it could there be a bit more of that next steps of who out there in the community can you reach out to and have the listing for the medical centre or Puakana or
Yeah, I wonder whether there's something. I think that's good points as well. I wonder whether there's something about it which is attractive in its simplicity. I think for people, there are other leaflets and things around with kind of like lists of numbers you can call for mental health and little brochures and things that I've seen around, your more standard ones. So my gut feeling more is that there's something, it seems like she's had a good response. And I know that Kiri, who couldn't be here at the meeting, I think she's spoken a couple of times in the community response group meetings about this this little brochure, this little leaflet. and has, you know, so spoken of it being effective. So it's a bit, yeah, I don't really have the experience to know, you know, for myself, whether if I was having a really tricky time or something, that it would be better for me to have like a whole list of local numbers. I just, yeah, that's just, I don't really have anything else particularly to say about that, but I feel like there are other places that provide more the standard list, you know, medical centre and the community house, and maybe it's really nice that it actually has something on there which is really key, but it's really not about that. It's actually, it's a different approach. So
I would have thought the suicide numbers and other, I mean, it calls itself a toolkit and it doesn't have all the tools in it. So I kind of.
Depends what you mean by tools.
Yeah. Well, the resources, like, I don't know if it.
I would say just suggest, she might not have thought about it. It's just, you know, suggest it back, and it's not about having those numbers up front. It's kind of like you get to the back of it and get the artists to do it. You know, you don't want it in a jarring way. It has to fit into the feel and you know, of it. Otherwise, if it's just, you know, Times New Roman blah 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 list, then that can actually backfire. And you know, because reading it's a really, you know, nice little booklet. It's doing all the right things about, you know, self-help and self-centering and that. But yeah, it's Dennis, you know, kind of you got to the back because we've got the bits about the artists and that, you know. But I think compared to all the other brochures, which are a bit more business-like and that, potentially, you know, this is the actual place to at least have, you know, where to next.
Something local. Yeah. You know, that's good. I think that's good. Good points, and definitely something we can feed back to Ruby.
I guess my question is though, so she's printing these with the money from the Catholic League in Te Awamutu, and she's going to do a print run, I'm assuming, of one big print run with the ones for Whangaroa and the ones for Te Awamutu.
She's already done Te Awamutu.
Oh, she's already done Te Awamutu.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So it's just it's specifically a print run for Whangaroa.
Yeah, so she's already received $1,500 and done a print run for $1,000. It sounds like. For the Waipa district.
Okay, so she could modify it to make it Raglan specific with a few things.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. So she's working in, yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I don't see why not. It would just be a very small change, wouldn't it? But maybe there's a cost in terms of printers changing stuff. I don't know. Sometimes there is when they set up, but
it also helps to kind of ensure that it's distributed in Raglan as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would like to move that we support Ruby Gibbs with her mental health toolbox booklet printing for $2,500. So
all those in favour?
All those in favour?
I'm unsure, honestly. I kind of want to see more detail.
I need a seconder too, Madam Chair.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of waiting for the seconder. Sorry. I need someone to second that, please.
Well, I'll second it.
All those in favour?
It's a yep for me.
A bit like Chris, I think I want to see a bit more before we pick it off.
I would say, is there a chance you could maybe come back to our next meeting? It's not a no, but it's definitely probably just a abstain from me.
But you, Dennis, what is it? What are you?
Well, I'm a bit like Chris. I'm abstaining at the moment because I really want to see a bit more information. I don't, having dealt with quite a few guys in situations like this, I'm not sure if I go from there and walked away from them, that it would help them a great deal. I think they, you know, for me, it's always been about a series of conversations over a significant period of time to get people back in the right headspace and things like that. So the booklet just doesn't turn me on, I'm afraid, as it is at this time.
So, Madam Chair, it leaves you in the situation that you've got a tied vote in effect, or if there are abstentions, it's actually carried by 2 votes to 2 abstentions. But if there are votes against, then it would leave a casting vote for you, which for discretionary funding for this amount, I'm not sure how you feel, Alison, but I think it's something that the board might be better placed getting more information on and deferring the item to the next meeting when you've got more members present and more of the questions can be answered by the board.
Yeah, so probably just through you, Madam Chair, my observation would be that for a town the size of Te Awamutu, she had funding of 1,500 and yet for Whāinga Ora it's 2,500. So just having a bit of a discussion around, is that because she did a lower print run, or there's not enough detail, I don't think, without having her talk to it. Having said that, I have a daughter who's a teenager who has been suicidal in previous years, and I know for a fact, having gone through the mental health system, that she doesn't look at those numbers, those formal numbers or anything. She's the kid that's quoting out printing out the inspirational quotes and sticking them up. And this is to me, talking to the young teenage female. This is the type of pitch. But it'd be quite good, I think, for her to be able to respond to the questions that you have.
Yeah.
So.
It's a bit tricky, isn't it, when she's not present? And usually we do ask that of people to attend to answer the question. So what you're saying, just good to learn, Gayleen, just so we know for next time. So what you're saying is if Dennis and Chris are abstaining, then potentially I could do a casting vote and vote in favour of it, which would mean that it would be passed. I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but is that the case?
If they're abstaining, you don't actually have to do a casting vote because it's actually passed by you and Tony.
Right. Okay. Okay. So it sounds like to me that they were abstaining, but I think that in light of it's a tricky one because I feel like this is important and it's so needed. And like, let's just get on with it. We've got money in the fund and just fund the thing. But I'm also listening to the board members and respect that. So I
think Alison's point was very key, that it was $1,500 for a town of Te Awamutu size and 2.5 for Raglan.
But Ruby is actually based here, so that's really different. She knows the community here, and she'll be wanting maybe to be much more active in the community. So to me, that's kind of relevant, but not really. It's not like, maybe the Te Awamutu people don't know her as well, but she maybe has a lot more people and a lot more connections. She's going to work with the schools here and be a lot more active in our community. So yeah, that.
So is the money for her to do that as well, or just for printing the booklet?
Printing, but I'm just saying I don't think you compare necessarily because she doesn't live in Te Awamutu. It's quite different what she would be doing in terms of her outreach with the booklets. But I think what we need to do is to I suppose the other thing is I wonder, this is just a thought, Gayleen, I wonder how would it be if I wanted to suggest to the board that we instead give her $1,300, move to give her $1,300, not $2,500. I don't know if that's going to make any difference for you, Chris and Dennis, or not. But is that an option, Gayleen, to put that motion?
Amend the motion. You're the mover, so you can do it with Tony's agreement, and to reduce that print run to 1,000 to the 1,000 as a start. And if she wants any further funding, that she should come back with more detailed plans and information for you, but and take on the feedback.
We do say that actually the same person can't come back in the same year for funding for the same project.
No, but you've only got one more meeting for this financial year anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you go, look, what? It's only 6 weeks, so let's see if we can get her to come back.
Yeah.
At the next meeting.
Yeah.
And then, and at that point, then we can decide, is it the full amount, is the partial amount? Because we have done part amounts. We do regularly change the amount that people, compared to what they request.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at our other applications and that we've funded in the past, it's $1,000 for the Arts Council, for the Film Festival, $1,430 for the museum. Like, it is a larger amount, and I think that for a larger amount such as this, there needs to be a little bit more detail and a person to answer questions. I'd happily pass a lesser amount, I think, based on the information provided, but we have to, because we've got the responsibility to administer this fund. I think we have to do our due diligence.
Yeah, and if you don't feel personally that there's enough information here, then you can say that. For some people it may be enough, but if it's not enough for you, Chris, for example, that's fine, I think, to say that. So I think what we're saying is that we would like her to come back to our next meeting so that she can talk to it. And that there's some suggestions around, could it have a bit more local information, local numbers in there? It was just a suggestion from the board.
You give her our feedback, Gabriel, and then she can update it or change it if she thinks that's what she wants to do, or she can come back and present why it's of the format it is of.
It's definitely not a no. Just get that to it's definitely not a no. It's just a more info.
Yeah, just the timing. It's like we really need this stuff now. But anyway, we're not trying to say that this is going to solve the world's problems or something. But
so you're happy to withdraw your motion and defer the application at this point, Madam Chair?
I think, from what I understand, is that we can't give funding to the same person. Well, that's not what we've done in the past. We haven't been able to give funding to the same person what you're saying, it's only one more meeting for the financial year, then it's going to be another year.
No, but I'm actually listening to what the board have said. It is 6 weeks away. Get her to come back to the June meeting and give more detail and everything, and take the feedback that they've provided today on what more information the board was seeking.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts, Tony?
Look, I think, give the feedback and have her come back at the next one and answer,
Yeah.
It's only 6 weeks.
Okay, let's do that. Thank you for your thoughts, board members. So we will ask Ruby to come back to the next meeting. Yeah, she would have really appreciated that we've talked about it today and discussed it and considered it, I'm sure. Yeah. So is that clear, Gayleen? We don't need to do anything more on that one, do we?
Yep.
Page 24, we've got the policy and bylaw report, which I will take as read as usual, but are there any particular comments that you want to make as board members on this?
Just one question, I guess, for Alison, Madam Chair, is around the boat ramp fees and charges. Does that come under the Parks and Reserves review, Alison? Because we've talked about it for the last year or so, about that it was coming up. So I just wondered where it was sitting.
Through you, Madam Chair, I thought we put in new charges in the long-term plan for boat ramps.
We don't have any boat ramp charges in Raglan at the moment.
Okay. Can I come back to you on that, Dennis? I need to actually have a look at that. So it would normally just go through a fees and charges process. It wouldn't need an associated policy or anything around it, but it would certainly have to have processes and procedures that were clear for the public. So
yeah, for some reason I thought as well, Dennis, that Megan had mentioned it was going to be part of a bylaw as well. I just remember her saying something about that, and I thought it was actually the public
places
one, maybe. But
when is that scheduled for now?
Yeah.
What was that, Chris?
So public places and reserves and beaches, obviously with COVID, everything's been pushed back. Do we have it, like just says at early stages and will be done alongside, but do we have a timeline, or is it going to be done before the next election?
It might be on page, like one of the later pages with the yellow highlighting. I don't know if it's got dates exactly. Let me just, I thought I'd highlighted that here.
So if it's yellow highlight, it means it's currently being reviewed. So there is work underway on it currently. So I can check.
And is that work due to be completed before the end of the trimester?
Not sure. I'll find out, Chris.
Yeah.
I suppose our question. Oh, sorry, Dennis.
I was just saying on page 28, it talks about 2023, right? And yeah. Places and reserves and beaches will be done together.
Yes, it does say that. So I suppose our question, Alison, is for the, if we wanted to implement or consider boat ramp fees or charges for here, how would we do that? Is it through a bylaw, or is it, yeah, basically we would like to know that, please.
I will find out. So the charges shouldn't sit in the bylaw, but the requirement to pay a charge might sit there. So I'll find out.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll find out where those reviews are, like you've asked for, where they're at.
Yeah, because like when we tried to get lime scooters into Raglan, we were basically told we have to wait for the review of the public places bylaw. So we kind of would like to follow that up to try and enable those scooter operators to potentially bring some of that transport options in summer to Raglan.
Can I have them in tomato when you're standing out there, Chris?
Yeah.
Is there anything else on this one? No. Okay, thank you. So we're just going to go to our page 68, the third quarter service request report, which you were emailed. Is there anything that you are noticing outstanding on this you want to highlight that hasn't been talked about with Waters today?
No, but can I just ask Alison if she can flag that we need the culverts all cleaned, because when we have a whole lot of rain, all of a sudden we're going to have a whole lot of flooding, because going for a walk around town, there's lots and lots of full of rubbish. This is the stormwater culverts.
I didn't catch the beginning of that, Dennis. You had a little bit of
council about getting the contractor out to clean a lot of the culverts and stormwater traps. John Hart raised with me that we had some rain about 6 weeks ago and he had a flood because his was full of leaves. And most of the ones when I go for a walk, I've been observing a chocker block full of leaves.
Okay.
Top of the grading, so nothing's been done for a while, and yeah, we're going to have some serious rain soon, one hopes.
I'll raise that.
Okay, so we will move on to Raglan Naturally verbal report.
Yep. So the main things that Raglan Naturally is supporting at the moment is the community COVID connector, and we'll be, and that's through with MSDS, and that provides an 0800 number that people in Raglan can call for help and assistance with any issues around COVID. And then going into planning for a Matariki celebration, 24th, 26th June on the Sunday. There are other events happening around from 21st to 29th, but Raglan Naturally is trying to pull together, or is pulling together, a community gathering to celebrate Matariki. And the plan is to close the main street, the section from Bow to Wainui Corner to Winera Corner, and have Matariki focused activities happening there. And then Youth Week, 7th to 15th of May. And so that's celebrating the rangatahi. 2 events on Sunday the 15th, 1 to 3 p.m. at Papahua near the skate park. Ages 12 to 24, it's a DJ event and create art installation event. And we had a very good neighbours day previously. Gabrielle, as Raglan Naturally Coordinator for the community, anything else you want to add in there?
Thanks, Tony. No, I think that's the main things. There's other things we're working on, but that's the main things that will be visible in the community over the next couple of months, few months. So thank you for that. Thanks, Tony. So we're going to come to 69, Chairperson's Report. And I will take that as read. There were couple of other things just to update on that have happened since I did my report. One is that I went to meet up with some of the rangatahi development team about the potential community swimming pool. And what have I got down here for there? So yeah, we had a meeting. There's a group of people that are starting to meet reasonably regularly now. So there's a swim coach who lives locally. There was pool building and pool management experts, one guy that lives in Raglan now, who has a lot of experience, and there's a possible local trust that would umbrella this as a community owned facility, and then I was there from the community board, and Sam Leahy from Rangatahi. So we were just talked through where they're up to. We were shown around the possible site, which is a really amazing site a bit further up from where all the houses are being developed at the moment, with a view kind of more northeast, I would say. So yeah, pretty special spot. They're just working on a design and some costing and a framework for how it's going to be held and managed at the moment. And then when they've got some concept drawings, they will bring that back to the community through the community board, just for input and comment from the community. And then they'll be going out to funders to see if they can get the funding to make this happen. So yeah, it was really cool to go up, and it was yeah, good to be part of that conversation. If anybody from the board particularly wants to know more about that or be more involved, just let me know. Then we attended the rally, the international rally meeting as well, Chris, Lisa and myself. And I understand that the next thing is that the council would be letting the community know that they're basically the rally organisation will be applying for consent to close the road, and that will be notified to the community, wouldn't it, Alison? So that we would have an opportunity to feedback. That what, do you know, is that what the next step would be? Do you know that, Alison?
Sorry, can you reframe that? Sorry, I just
doing something else. No, that's all good.
I'm sorry, I got distracted there. I'm trying to send chat messages out to people on these action points. Community board.
Oh, yeah, great. Get it done in one. That's all right. We go. It's kind of long too. So I was just talking about the international car rally. Yep, Chris and Lisa and myself attended the meeting, the community meeting the other day.
Yep.
And I think the next thing is that they will be applying to the council for consent to close the road. And I'm pretty sure that will come back out to the community, will it? Be notified to the community?
So I'm not entirely sure how that process works. So there'll be traffic management stuff, but I would have thought that it's a high community interest project, so it should be brought back, yes.
Yeah, that's right. And if anybody from the community that's either listening or reads the minutes or anything, they want to, you know, feed in or raise any concerns or ideas or get involved in the project, they can contact Councillor Thompson. I'm just trying to find out the best person to contact in council, just waiting to hear that. Otherwise, they can actually contact the rally organisers as well at info@rallynz.org.nz. So, yeah. And I also noticed that the policy was coming up for review in the list that we just looked at. So that might be interesting for us as a board to have a look at when it does that, just to see what's in there. And we actually asked the organisers if they would come back a couple of months after the event to actually feedback and do a review and feedback to the community about how it went if it goes ahead.
Yeah.
And the only other thing I just wanted to make a comment on is that there's going to be a regional council are doing some work around freshwater. They need to, with recent directive from the government, they need to update their regional policy statement and the regional plan. And there's going to be a workshop in Raglan on the 20th of May, which is coming up really soon. It's on a Friday afternoon at the Union Church Hall, Stewart Street. It's going to run from 9:30 to 3, and you can attend either the morning or the afternoon if you can't do the whole day. But it's going to be looking at the Whangaroa catchment area in terms of freshwater, so that will feed into those plans and statements. So if you want to attend yourselves, or if you know of anyone who would be really good to have along, just I'll actually put that information up on our Facebook page soon, so you can share it through that. Yeah, and that's it for me there. And then on page 75, we have the councillors' report. Just take that as read. And then we have board members' reports, which is from you, Dennis. Thank you. Are there any questions for Dennis around his report? Much for that, Dennis, keeping us updated. And I think that we have covered everything today. So if there's nothing else from board members, then we will close our meeting. And thank you, everyone.
Thanks, team.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good meeting. Thanks, Alison, Galen.
and Sam.
You.